Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm sitting here today ready to start another project using the Marvel Comics page kit. And as soon as I saw this paper pack, I knew straight away that I wanted to do something that's a little bit different. I've never done this before, but I definitely want to give it a go. So I went to Kmart and I bought some shoes. So some really inexpensive canvas shoes. These are in my son's size, and I wanted to make a comic or a superhero comic collage shoe. So that is my aim. I'm going to see how we go. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull it off, but hey, why not give it a go? Now, some of the supplies that we're going to need are glue. So you can just straight away use Mod Podge. This will be your glue plus your sealer and your finish. So you could just use the one product and that's it. If you don't have this is something else that you can do. If you've just got some normal PVA glue, go ahead and use equal portions of glue and water. And then once that's finished, you're going to have to seal it, and you can buy good old-fashioned sealer, or you can buy hairspray. I've got some varnish over here. This is gloss and this is matte. So you just need to make sure that you cover your collaged item, so in this case my shoes, with something that protects it from water and weather damage. So let's go ahead. I'm going to get started. I can't wait to see how this turns out. And yeah, let's get going. So I'm going to start with adding equal parts of glue to water. This ratio was something that I started off with as an experiment. You just usually have a feel for it as you go along. And I started off with a little less water than usual, but then I did add a little bit more glue and a little bit more water as I used up the mixture. The first thing here was to take off the laces, and then I grabbed some magazine clippings and I stuffed them into the shoe so that the shoe was full and that it wasn't collapsing on itself as I was adding the paper and the glue. The next thing I wanted to do was grab my paper, and actually this is the part that was a little bit stressful for me. Like, what was I going to do? How was I going to do this? I've never done this before. So I have everything here sitting around me. I'm kind of playing around with shapes, getting a feel for the shoe, getting a feel for the materials that I'm using, and trying to get into the spirit of the project that I'm trying to make. The first thing that works for me is the redhead beating up Spider-Man. I think she works really well at the bottom there, so she goes to the heel of the shoe. And then the Captain America logo seemed to fit really well along the side of the shoe, and that seemed to kind of start it off for me. From there, I decided that the tongue was going to get some of this comic, and so I was brave enough to just get started. I think I was just prolonging the whole adding glue to a brand new product, but once I started, it was quite easy. Now, the important thing is what I'm doing here. The paper needs to be broken down in fibers, not ripped, but I'm just curling it around my bone folder, and it makes the paper quite supple and, yeah, easy to manipulate with the glue. I use a combination of both the brush and my fingers, and I'm also trying to be very clean as I go. So I am sopping up any glue that is excess. I add a little bit more glue because I thought that the solution was just a little too watery for my liking. And so this is what I mean when I say just go with how you feel. If you feel that it's the correct consistency for you, it probably is. If you feel it's too watery, add more glue. If you feel it's too gloopy or too thick, add a little bit more water. So I'm putting the glue down on the canvas first, curling the paper a second, adding glue to the paper, then adding the paper onto the canvas, then topping it up with glue on top. And that's how the whole process is going to be. Now, when it came to this part of the shoe started curving towards the front of the toes, and so I felt like the captain was not quite right. So I decided to separate the CAP and actually curve it around with the shoe, and I felt that the result was actually really pleasing to me. So don't ever be afraid to cut things up to make them work for you. It is sometimes a little bit more work, but the final product, which is what you're going to have to live with, will be so much better, and you'll be so happy that you did the extra effort. Next, it came time to figure out what I was going to put at the very top of the shoe. I kind of really liked this Thor one. It was kind of looking at me as I was working, so I thought, yeah, why not tear it up and use it here? So I did, and I made it so that it curved from one side of the shoe to the other side of the shoe, and I kind of really like how that looks. The tricky part here was getting it to curve nicely along the edge. And so I just used my little scissors, and I used my finger just to get glue between the crevices of the paper and the canvas of the shoe. This is definitely a project that took a lot of time and a lot of care. When it came to the very front of the shoe, I realized that I was going to have to do little snips into it so that it curved really nicely. I also realized that I was going to have to use my fingernails to really get it up to the edge and butt it right up against the bottom part of the shoe. So you're going to really have to take some time here and do it right so that there are no bubbles and that it attaches all the way down. So all that is left is the inner of that left shoe, and I thought the word Thor was perfect there, and it was actually really perfect sizing too, so it just seemed to fit into place in the end. So you have Captain America on the one side, the picture of Thor, and then the word Thor along the inside. I love how it turned out. You'd think that it was planned that way, but it actually wasn't. It just all fell together really well. I also did at times use my bone folder, but I found that using my finger and my nail was just a more natural way to get things done. This is why I don't have fake nails and why I usually never wear nail polish either. I use my hands a lot for everything that I do, whether I cook or art or clean. I usually use my fingers a lot, and yeah, my nails get a beating. Last of all comes the tongue. I'm adding a whole heap of glue here, and then I'm sliding the paper in. And then it's best not to have any scrunched up pieces of paper in there, because once you add glue on top, you need it to dry and not against the shoe. So this took a while to dry, especially the weather that we've been having. It's been raining, it's been cold, and I had it in my little laundry room with the heater going for almost all day, and then I left it to dry overnight. After it's dry, you kind of have to do a little bit of cleaning up, and if there were any areas that had the canvas still showing, I filled them in with just quotes and sayings from the paper, and then I went over it one more time with glue, and I just checked to see that there were no other areas that were bubbling up or looked like they needed extra attention. And then I moved on to the second shoe. I decided that the second shoe was going to feature Spider-Man, and so I used the picture of Spider-Man on the very front of the shoe, so that when you're looking down, Spider-Man looks up at you and not at the person who's standing in front of you. And I did the same thing here, and I snipped
along the curve of the front so that it curves nicely with the shoe. I then added the Amazing Spider-Man sentiment along the side there, and then filled in any of the gaps. On the other side, I used a combination of both the Marvel and the comic group sentiments, and those pieces just seemed to fit in place like they were meant to be there. So I was really happy with how quickly the second shoe came along. And I guess the confidence, once you've worked on the first shoe, the confidence comes in and helps you out a lot. And then I worked on the tongue. And then once again, once it was dry, this is the next day, I added a second coat. Now this is just using Mod Podge. So the first coat was PVA glue with water. The second coat now, this is Mod Podge, which is the sealer, and it seals everything in nicely. And once that last layer is dry, so this is the day after that, I grabbed my sanding tool and I just sanded it around the shoe so that you didn't have any hard glue that was going to hurt you when you put your foot in the shoe. And I also sanded down along the edge of the shoe there as well. After I sanded, I added another layer of Mod Podge, and then that went back into my laundry room to dry for a whole 24 hours. Alrighty, so 1 week after I started, it is now time to lace up my shoes. And it's interesting how people lace up shoes. How do you lace your shoes? Do you lace your shoes crisscross, or do you do it this way that I'm doing it now? I was always taught this way, and I actually love this way. I think crisscross just doesn't look right for me. And here are my shoes. I love the look of them. I love how they turned out. I wish that I'd bought them in my size so that I could wear these shoes. And I can just imagine the possibilities. Now that I know how to collage shoes, can you imagine a graphic 45 shoe? Oh, that would be amazing. So I think I might be doing that sometime in the very near future. Other than that, I have a little boy here who is super happy with his shoes. He says he can't wait to wear them the next day that school has free dress, and I don't blame him. They do look really cool. So thank you so much for joining me, you guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video.